Welcome to the No Sports Report, a production of iHeartRadio and Treefort Media. My name is Jensen Karp, and I'm a sports fan. And I've been trying my hardest to quench my thirst for games by watching KBO, the Korean baseball organization. And it's been great. I'm into the mascots, the cheerleaders in medical masks, the cardboard cutouts of fans. But I just found out they allow ties. After the 12th inning, they just call the game. And in postseason, they go 15, and if it's still tied, they just replay a whole new game the next day. Normally, I'm all for saying, I'm tired, let's go home. But in sports, I don't know, I have to reassess. Anyway, go Samsung Lions. And yes, I continue to talk to athletes and sports industry professionals about what they're doing in quarantine, hoping to figure out if they miss competing as much as I miss watching it. This is the No Sports Report. Kolten Wong doesn't give up. I've never talked to him before this interview, and I've never met the man, but I know this for sure. Because I first learned of the St. Louis Cardinals infielder back in 2013 during the World Series against the Boston Red Sox. He was a highly touted rookie for the Cards, brought in to pinch run with the tying run at bat and 2 outs, so close to flipping the lead in the 9th inning of a pivotal Game 4 matchup. And what happened next forced Kolten to tweet after the game, "All I want to say is, I'm sorry to Cardinals Nation." Getting picked off to end a World Series game might break someone else, but not Kolten Wong. In the past 6 years, Kolten not only stayed a Cardinal, he's become a fan-favorite superstar. In 2019, he cemented himself as the division's top second baseman, batting .285 with 11 home runs, 59 RBIs, 24 stolen bases, and the first Golden Glove of his career. That's more than a good season. That's an all-out redemption. This year was going to be his well-deserved victory lap, pushing those stats even further, but now he sits at an option year, waiting for the chance to go back out and continue proving himself to Cardinals Nation, a group of fans he loves and now undoubtedly love him back. We talk about his upbringing in Hawaii with a coach dad, losing an Instagram cornhole to Jedd Gyorko, and the beauty that is spam. It's a fun episode. I hope you enjoy the No Sports Report.
Call from
Kolten Wong, second base for the St. Louis Cardinals.
To accept, press 1.
Hello, Kolten.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm well, man. I wanted to start off by asking you where you are quarantining right now and with who.
Gotcha. I'm actually, with my wife quarantining in St. Louis.
Because I was going to be honest with you, if you said Hawaii, it was going to be very hard for me to feel bad for you at all.
I wish I would have made that move, man.
Oh, man. I truly thought to myself, I mean, listen, Los Angeles is beautiful. I love my house. Those things are great. But if I had to pick anywhere, I would probably have picked Hawaii to be stuck. But then you're stuck indoors just staring at the beautiful weather and the ocean and stuff. So maybe you picked the right place.
Yeah. It was one of those things. If I was, if we had spring training in Arizona, it would have been an easy choice. But
yeah,
being in Florida and having to make that flight all the way back, I just felt like, coming back to St. Louis, at least I'm in the middle. If we got to go back to Florida, it's not a bad trip. Or in St. Louis, it's, at least I made the right decision. So
that's right. Well, how are you staying busy during quarantine? Tell me what you've been up to.
Yeah, just, trying to continue to work out. Fortunately for me, I have a little gym in the house, so I've been able to get my workouts in here and there. I bought this little wiffle ball, pitching machine a while back that I've always used just to kind of take ground balls and whatnot. I got a tee and a net, so just trying to stay busy with that. But, that's basically it. Just trying to stay healthy and take care of my body and hope for a season to begin soon.
I wonder if after this, not that we're obviously thinking there'll be another pandemic, or at least we're hoping not, but we've heard that these things will come in waves and stuff. Do you think that baseball players and athletes in general will start setting up these like home gyms and setups so that in case this happens again?
I think so. I think this opened up a lot of eyes for a lot of people. Just realizing that, how important it is for us. Because obviously if this happened once, there's a good chance it might happen again. So, being ready and starting to prepare for that, I think is on a lot of guys' minds for sure.
Have you been able to keep in touch with your teammates?
We have. We've been doing Zoom calls here and there. And then, I talk to everybody. I'll send texts out to guys. And, we try to keep the communication going. Obviously, usually we're around each other every single day. So to not be, it's just a little weird. And, we just want to continue to keep that camaraderie going.
Yeah. I mean, you tell me, what is like, other than working out, because I'm trying to connect with you even closer, what lazy things have you done? Have you watched TV shows, binged anything, movies?
Yeah, just a lot of Netflix, I would say. Obviously when I'm trying to not doing anything. I just want to relax. So just doing Netflix and, little video games here and there, but I've never been the biggest video game player. So just trying to get into that just to kind of keep my mind busy. But, that's about it, man. Just trying to stay active mostly.
Well, because of this podcast, I paid very close attention to the MLB The Show Players League. And if you ever say something like, I'm okay at it, don't go in the Players League. It's a bad look.
Dude, I've watched those guys, and I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I didn't sign up for this.
It doesn't work. What did you watch on Netflix?
I've actually watched Waco.
Oh, here's the thing, Kolten.
Yeah.
Most people answer the same things. Tiger King, they say Ozark, whatever. Waco, completely different. Did you love it?
I loved it. I mean, it was intense from the get-go, and honestly, it just felt like it never left the gas pedal, man. That thing was just nonstop. It kept me literally hooked onto the TV show until I probably watched the whole TV show in 2 days. It was just one of those things where it just kept me on. It was awesome.
And I know it's like, even if you think you know the story, everyone's saying it's kind of from a different angle. It actually gives you a bit of, I don't want to say happy thoughts about the Davidian, but I guess maybe it wasn't quite as devious as we thought they were.
Not at all. I mean, obviously, you just watch it from a different perspective. And I mean, especially with the pandemic going down, you're like, man, this government stuff is a little scary. You don't know exactly what's going on.
Totally. Well, listen, if it makes me into David Koresh more, I'm down to watch it. So it's now on top of my list. But I'm happy just to hear a brand new show or movie that someone said. Every time I bring it up in these interviews, it's like just the same show. So thank you for the difference.
Oh, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I watch those other shows as well, but that was definitely number one on my list of, exciting TV shows that I watched. And I also watched Outer Banks, which was actually another really good one too.
Oh, I don't even know what that is. Tell me what that is.
Basically it's about these kids who, I guess one of the kids, his dad goes missing, and they go on this crazy chase to find treasure. And so it's basically based out of Outer Banks, North Carolina, and these kids go and try to find like a ship that was supposedly buried or sunk, off the Outer Banks. And it's a crazy kind of story that takes you down where these kids end up, finding out his dad was, basically on this treasure map and kind of found the treasure and, was killed in the process, but, left his kid clues on how to, find the treasure. So it was cool.
Yeah, sounds like Tarantino Goonies. It's like a little more intense.
Yes, exactly. A little newer version of the Goonies for sure.
Well, let's talk about some things you put on the internet for people to watch. The Cornhole battle on IG Live with Jedd Gyorko. Tell me how this even came together.
Honestly, Jedd, I did this little cornhole tournament. I took it over from Jason Mott. I lost my mother back in 2013, and when he left the Cardinals, he was kind of trying to find a person, and he came at me with it, and I just felt like, with what I went through, it'd be cool to kind of give back to the Cancer Society and partner up with him and just try to, help out. So it was something that I've continued to do in St. Louis, and Jedd would always participate, and he was always, the best at it. He was always the best on our team. He was, pushing for the championships almost every year. So I knew he was a big fan of it. And I was watching his Instagram, and he was, doing these cornhole trick shots where he was shooting them from all different angles, not looking, over his like skywalk that he has in his house. And I was like, man, this is pretty cool. And he's like, dude, we should do a cornhole challenge. And I was like, dude, I don't know if I want to play you. I'm not good at this game, and you're really good.
And how did it end up?
Didn't end up too well. He kind of spanked me in that thing. I mean, it was one of those things where I was trying to hope that, my athleticism would take over a little bit, but just having that feel, throwing that bag was just something that I didn't have a good feel of. And yeah, he took it to me pretty good.
Dude was a ringer, I think. You walked into it. You bring up your family. I know you're very close with your father and your brother. Have you been able to see them even though you're in St. Louis?
Just talking here and there. Having some FaceTimes and just trying to stay busy. But my brother's back in Hawaii. He was, he was with the Giants to start the spring training, and it's just one of those things where he was so close. He just went back, and I was like, man, I wish I would have came back too.
Yeah, well, your father is a highly respected baseball coach and trainer in Hawaii. This must be one of the first times he isn't helping someone play baseball in decades. I can't imagine he's stopped playing for longer than 3 months since you were a kid.
Oh no, we've constantly his whole thing is he's a hitting instructor back in the Big Island, and like you said, he's one of those guys who everybody knows who he is. So baseball's been something that's been ingrained in him. He kind of instilled that in us and gave us a love of the game, and just my hitting coach since day one, and I continue to go to him to this day.
Great. Well, we talk about Hawaii and the Big Island. The economy obviously depends on tourism. Do you know what kind of effect this is having on the mainland? The idea that no one wants to travel and no one's really allowed to travel per se. I mean, do you know what the effect is so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's been affecting all those small businesses back in Hawaii. Like you said, Hawaii is a huge tourism state. That's what we rely on. That's where we get most of our income. And, to not have this, obviously it's been tough on all the people in Hawaii because, when you have money, it's hard to pay bills. And in Hawaii, with how expensive it is, the living costs and whatnot, I mean, you're talking about $7-8 per gallon of milk there.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where, with this hitting and, people not being able to work, it's been pretty tough. I've been trying to keep in touch with a lot of people, trying to figure out what I can do to help out. But it's just been one of those things where it's kind of, it's above my head already. I'm just trying to see if I can do anything to just help these people get some kind of break.
And I know that like in the past, I've thought of Hawaii as sort of, a lot of people don't think of it in the States because it is the 50th, I guess. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's because it's such a vacation destination for a lot of people, but it's front and center with a lot of these things, obviously. I know you've been working with Young's Fish Market to match and deliver any order placed for healthcare workers or first responders in Hawaii. They're delivering like 600 a day, which is nuts. But how important is it to give back to where you grew up, especially in times like this?
So important. Those people are the people who created me, who, invested in me, who kind of made me the person that I am today. And, for me growing up and seeing, what it was like, I wasn't somebody who grew up with a lot of money. My parents, we weren't broke by any means, but we weren't well off, so I was able to be in the trenches with, these people, seeing how life was back then, like to understand, where I was and where I am now. It's almost like an obligation that I feel deep down that I need to help these people. I know what it's like. I know when you come home and you see these kids who haven't had meals the whole day or the past couple of days, and they're just trying to figure out some way of getting food. It's one of those things where it's just, I know there's a pandemic and I know we're not getting paid, but I'm still trying to do whatever I can to help just put some kind of meal on the table for these kids.
That's great. And also, they're talking about not being able to internationally fly through the end of the year. That's what it seems like. So they did encourage people that want to take a vacation to do it within the States. So remember, Hawaii would be an easy travel destination, even if there's an international ban.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be great. So you are of Chinese descent. I'm wondering if you have faced any racism with like morons over COVID-19, or if you know anyone else who's faced it.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately for me, I have not faced it, but, being on social media and just going through, watching TV and whatnot, and you just see that, racism is starting to show up even more and more. And it's just so sad, man, because at the end of the day, we're not anything but humans. We're all the same. We all bleed the same. We all have the same colored blood. And it's like, this time, instead of worrying about, this guy being this race or this guy being that, why don't we just worry about being good humans and taking care of one another, doing what we can in this time. And it's just one of those things where I sit back and it's like, growing up in Hawaii, you never saw racism. You never understood what that was. But as times get worse and worse, you see it come back. And it's like, man, it's such an ugly face to show. And you see all these people coming out and calling each other names. And, just because of how they were born, we don't have control over that. We just control our emotions and who we are. So, it's just one of those things where I hope people understand that, we're all humans at the end of the day. And let's just do what we can to take care of one another.
True. Amen. More with the St. Louis Cardinals' Kolten Wong after this. Right now, Feeding America is working tirelessly to ensure our most vulnerable populations, like students who are out of school, the elderly, individuals whose jobs are impacted, and low-income families, continue to have access to food and other needed resources during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Feeding America Food Bank Network is committed to serving communities and people facing hunger in America, and their greatest need is donations and support of local food banks. This podcast is committed to donating a portion of the proceeds from the show to Feeding America, and we hope that you can join us in this effort too. Find out how you can help at feedingamerica.org/COVID-19. And now, the rest of my chat with Kolten Wong. So you grew up as family friends with BJ Penn, which is almost its own sitcom.
Yeah.
You guys utilized a gym with his family. I know you do follow some MMA. What do you think about the UFC continuing to fight through all this?
Man, it's crazy. Dana White is one of those businessmen who has done things, to this extent. And, you're talking about doing a fight island and whatnot. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool for just people to kind of have something to do. Obviously everyone's kind of going stir crazy being at home and whatnot. But me being a UFC fan and understanding, what these fighters go through, I mean, it's honestly incredible to see these guys, put it on the line with no fans. I mean, it's got to be tough, from a mental standpoint to go out there and, basically getting a street fight with your friends behind you and not have anybody to cheer you on. You know what I mean? Usually when you get in a street fight, you're provoked. And for these guys, it's just, they're doing this because they love the sport. And, it must be kind of crazy for them to just go out there and find somebody with no cheering or anything going on.
I watched a little bit of it the other night, and being able to hear like corner yelling or hear a punch, I was just like, this is a completely different sport with no one in the audience.
Oh, it's incredible. And then you hear the guy's breath, and you see like you can tell the guy who's getting tired quicker, and it's just a whole different way of watching fights. And I thought that was pretty cool, but also just very, very surreal at the same time.
Yeah. You're coming off a career year. It feels like you were able to stay healthy and get really comfortable in your surroundings. Some incredibly hard work on your behalf. Does the postponement mess up your flow at all?
It did for me. Honestly, after that year coming into the spring training, I knew who I was as a player. I kind of had an understanding. Before then, I was still searching about trying to figure out what may be the most consistent. How was I going to be able to be consistent in this league? Because you watch all the best players in this league, they're consistent. They know how to play their game and they know how to bring it out every single day. And so I was always chasing that, trying to figure out, what makes me the best that I can possibly be. And I started understanding, who I was and what made me good. It was one of the things that came to spring training this year, and everything was starting to click. You usually go through a chart and you want to have something, to kind of see where you are going into the season. And for me, I always wanted to check off, certain boxes and make sure, because obviously when you start a season, you always have certain things that are a little behind, and they kind of start picking up as you get more games in. But this year, it was just like, man, everything felt good. I was seeing the ball well. I was hitting well above 300. I was, doing my thing, leading off actually to start spring training. And it was one of those things where everything was falling into place. And when this thing hit, it was just such a bummer for me because I just felt like I knew who I was this spring training. I knew what I was trying to, accomplish in this spring training. I felt like when the season was going to be ready to go, like I was ready to start. Where usually you're kind of like, you know what, I don't really know how this beginning is going to go. Let's just go out there and compete. But, I just felt really confident in what I had going, and I thought it was going to be a really, really good 2020. And, then this whole COVID thing came up and, just kind of stopped that all in the tracks.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's true because you're going into kind of a contract year. They have an option on you. They'd obviously be stupid not to renew that, considering you're really getting into your stride with the Cardinals. But do you think of it from a business standpoint that you want to get out there and prove yourself for those type of situations also?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing is people always are like, yeah, he did it 1 year, good for him. But for me, it's like, I've constantly, every single year have gotten better and better and better because I've just constantly tried to focus on what makes me the most consistent. And it was one of those things where I just felt like, I was doing really well and I knew who I was. And, hopefully the Cardinals understand that, I'm getting into my 30s now, but I feel like I'm just scratching the surface with the player that I am. And, I know who I am now. And now it's about just, continuing to build on that and make myself the best that I could possibly be.
Yeah. And especially with the city getting behind you, it does feel like it would be a good place for some sort of extension or whatever. But obviously the game and everyone's health is sort of in limbo. But you proved yourself as a 4-category guy last year. You won your first Golden Glove. You're now a veteran in the league, like you said, hitting your 30s, with rumors that you will be taking that leadoff spot that you tested out during spring training. Do you see yourself as taking a leadership role when things start back up?
That's one of those things where I try to let my actions speak for that. I love helping out the young guys. That's something I've always had a passion with. I always love, trying to show them, the things that I went through, the hardships that I went through, when they go through it, I try to be there to help them. So, I think just allowing my actions to speak for that, because I talk to these guys and some of these guys who are struggling, I'm like, listen, man, go look at my beginning of my career. Like I was there, like you want to talk about hitting rock bottom at the beginning. Like I got called up in 2013 and I went to the World Series and got picked off that exact same year, so it's like I started at absolutely ground zero and worked my way to where I am now. So if you have any questions, please ask me because I promise you I've been in your shoes. So, I think I'm definitely starting to get more into that leadership role, but we still have such good leaders in, Waino and Yachty and all these main veterans in St. Louis. And it's just one of those things where, you see those guys and how they carry themselves. It just makes you understand, what it's like to be a Cardinal and how you're supposed to act as a Cardinal.
Totally. And such great fans in the city as well. Which brings me to my next question. Have you ever thought about playing with no fans?
Obviously, it was one of those things where, that thing's been thrown around here and there. I told them, listen, man, I grew up playing with no fans. Like I grew up, on the Big Island where, we'd go out and play our games with literally, 10 people in the stand. So, if I got to go back to the old childhood days, man, it's all good. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to grind. But As it comes down to owners, and obviously money is the most important thing. But at the end of the day, I think it'd be fun, man. Obviously, you'll hear a lot more talking, between teams, and a lot more chirping, people don't really hear as much. Where I think it'd be cool. I think people would understand that, but it would be a little bit of a transition being able to get yourself up for the game, knowing that there's nobody in the stands to kind of bring that out.
Yeah, speaking of chirping, I talked to Jared Stoll, who used to play for the LA Kings, about this a little bit. But I wonder if, without any fans, do you even get the adrenaline to want to go fight? I feel like everything will get squelched. Like, oh, I'm mad, but no one's yelling at me to go punch him in the face.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be like that kind of chirping, more as just like, probably pitchers talking, to hitters, and it'll be more of like a good, fun kind of chirping, because you're not going to have that killer mentality like sometimes you do.
Yeah.
It's just going to be, I'm going to try and outplay you. I'm going to try and outtalk you. I'm going to try and get in your head. So, I think it'll be something that, hopefully we can figure out a way to kind of show that a little more, because since we're not having fans and people are going to hear, we might as well let them hear the exact words that are coming out. And, it's just going to be one of those things where we got to figure out, how to really, control that, because there's going to be a lot of chirping. There always is during the games. It's just usually we have fans kind of covering it up.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun to see how they do that.
Speaking of fans and chirping and hearing things, I mean, listen, obviously we'd have to bring up that this next season was going to be very strange with the Astros and sort of what has come out over the year. Like, do you think this postponement helps them as a team? Do you think that time will heal this wound, or you think as soon as opening day comes up, fans or no fans there, people are going to remember what at least their own opinions on it?
Yeah, man, that's just a tough situation. I honestly don't know how that's going to go about. Obviously, a lot of guys have, some bitter things to say about that team. Fortunately for us, we didn't play them when that whole thing kind of went down. So, for me, at the end of the day, when I think about, the Houston Astros, all I think about is, at the end of the day, I know that I played the game right. I know that I've done things right. And that's all I can speak about. People are going to have their own opinions about it. People are going to have their own feelings. But for me, like, I know that I've been doing things the right way since I got into the league. I know I haven't cheated. I know I haven't done anything of that sort. So when I put my head down every night to go to bed, I know that I can sleep with a clear conscience.
It's great. Korean baseball, have you watched it yet? Have you checked it out on ESPN?
Honestly, I haven't gotten the chance to check it out because it just starts so late. It's either so late or it's, at 5 o'clock in the morning. And it's just one of those things where I've wanted to watch it. I just literally cannot stay up to watch it. Usually if I'm playing, it's easy for me to stay up. I'm usually not going to bed till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So it would have been cool. But I mean, nowadays it's just like, man, I'm already sleeping by the time that thing's on there. So I haven't really got a chance to watch it too much.
Well, I'm backing the Samsung Lions for no other reason other than I have a Samsung TV. So that I'm fully engulfed. I'm rooting them on. They're my team. So we usually like to close this. Thank you. We usually like to close this off with something positive and then some suggestions I'll give you that could be stupid. I don't know. You'll listen in. First, is there anything that's been going on during the quarantine, during this time, that you hope sticks around for when there's a vaccine or we're all allowed out of our house? Something you hope we sort of change into when things clear up?
I think from, the standpoint of, guys using face masks and whatnot, obviously I think there's a place for that. I don't think, every human in the world should be wearing a face mask, but I do think when it comes down to restaurants or things of that matter, when you're handling something of, that importance, maybe it is something we should look into, having, servers have a face mask or, something like that. But I think, from all the studies that I've done about this, germs is what helps us create antibodies. Making everybody use a face mask, you're not doing anything but actually hurting yourself. So, I'm a big, I still use my face mask, but I use it when I am told to use it. I try to, still live the same lifestyle when I go out, but make sure that, I'm still following the guidelines. But I want to make sure I'm still getting those germs in my body and still, kind of build, my, antibodies that way.
Yeah, it feels like the 6 feet thing. If you're within 6 feet, wear the mask. If you're not, it doesn't seem as, at least maybe now wear it anyway. But down the road, it does feel like, okay, we're going to probably have to be socially distant for a while. Yeah,
and I agree with that. I mean, I feel like at some point, it was getting a little crazy with just how, people were and, just the freedom they had. I mean, obviously, we need to be a lot more on top of this, but it's just one of those things where, it's good that we're starting to get into this point because the health of people is the most important thing at the end of the day.
True. Well, let's get into these suggestions. These are some ideas for you for quarantine in St. Louis. I mean, you could obviously take them in or just ignore them, but here are 3 suggestions. We'll start off for training and playing sports when we're confined to our house, possibly with the promise of social distancing like we talked about, we can still play in our yards. We can do stuff inside like workout, but the yard is still fair game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I use my yard all the time.
Perfect. So you'll love this. So I say we take the time to figure out what the hell bocce ball is.
Okay.
Do you even know? I mean, obviously you know what, the term, but like, have you ever even looked into what the game is? We know old people love it in Boca Raton, but like, is there any reason to play it?
Actually, yeah. I mean, I've played it here and there. I'm not a huge bocce ball fan by any means, but I played the game.
Okay.
I understand that you throw a ball out there, and then basically that's your target to get your ball and the other player's ball. Whoever gets the closest to the ball is the winner, from what I get of the game.
That was a very minimal explanation, but I will take it. But that is one suggestion. Figure out if bocce ball is worth our time. It sounds like it might be, so add that on to suggestion. Secondly, if there's one thing I know about Hawaiian cuisine, it's the state's love for Spam. Were you raised eating a lot of Spam?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I love Spam.
Okay, so unfortunately in the States, especially Los Angeles where I grew up, people don't know how good of a product it is. So I'm wondering, is there a world where you create like a goop or something? It's like Kolten Wong's favorite like recipes with Spam. Like, what do you remember off the top of your head that's good for Spam?
Spam musubi, number one. That's the one thing people always, they're always like, oh, Spam, and then, I'll give them a Spam musubi that, it's homemade, and they're like, whoa, what is this? I'm like, yeah, it's Spam. And they're like, no way. I'm like, yes. Like, Spam is good, but people just don't know how to prepare it the right way.
Yeah.
If you do a little soy sauce and brown sugar and you marinate it in the Spam and then you fry that, it's incredible.
See, that's what we need. We need someone doing this kind of service for our country. It would be in great hands with Kolten Wong. So that's my second one. We figure out Spam better. And then thirdly, we've been talking a lot about, what we can do and the charity work that you've done. And you seem altruistic. Like you said, your brother plays baseball for the San Francisco Giants as well. And I have an idea for you guys that involves teaming up and forming your own charity. Does this seem possible? Maybe?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So you can focus on anything. It could be kids or women's rights or racial equality or COVID, whatever you want it to be, as long as it has this name. Okay. So this is the one that I've figured out. Okay. Here we go. You ready?
Yep.
All right. The charity will be called Two Wongs Make a Right.
I'm not going to lie. I've heard that numerous times.
Oh, damn it. Here's how I can fix it. Kolten, I can fix it.
Yep.
You involve the New York Mets' David Wright, and it becomes Two Wongs Make a Right with a right.
Okay. I can see where you're going with it. I mean, hey, that'd be awesome to have the captain on there.
See, there you go. And if there's someone has ever pitched that to you before, I also would love to involve backup first baseman on the Dodgers, Tyler White, because then it's Two Wongs Make a Right with Wright and White.
I mean, absolutely.
See?
We can involve so many people at that point.
All right. See, right when you thought I suggested something as someone else has, I flip it on you. That's what I do.
Absolutely. That was awesome.
Well, thank you, buddy, for talking to me. Stay safe. And please, I'm excited to see you back on the field because I really am truly a huge Kolten Wong fan and watching you come into your own. And like you said, kind of taking what you had in your rookie year and turning it into a Gold Glove season and becoming a bit of a franchise player. I can't wait to see you back out there.
I appreciate it, man. I can't wait to be back out there too. But I appreciate you guys with the sport, and yeah, man. Hopefully this clears up soon so we can get back to doing our thing for sure.
Absolutely. Take care, Kolten.
All right, you take care.
The No Sports Report is produced and distributed by Treefort Media. The show is executive produced by Kelly Garner, Lisa Ammerman, Matthew Kugler, and me, Jensen Karp. Tom Monahan is our senior audio engineer and sound supervisor, with production and editing by Jasper Leak. Additional production help from Tim Schauer, June Rosen, and Haley Mandelberg. Our theme music is composed by Spilkus. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, please subscribe, rate us, and review us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And please visit feedingamerica.org. If you're able to make a donation, any amount makes a difference, and you can learn more about other ways you can help on their website. For more information on the No Sports Report, links to the socials, and for show transcripts for our hearing impaired listeners, go to treefort.fm. Be safe and be well. The No Sports Report is a production of iHeartRadio and Treefort Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.